Hello everyone and welcome to C# Advanced Tutorials. My name is Steve Bishop. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in the technology industry for over 15 years, doing mostly technical support until about 5-6 years ago when I really started getting more into the development side of technology. Since then, I've become a Microsoft SQL Server DBA. I am also a full-stack .NET developer with an emphasis on ASP.NET MVC. I'm officially known as the Senior Software Architect for Gartman Technical Services. Now, if you're looking for more of my material, you can reach me at techie-tid-bits.blogspot.com, and of course I post updates on there regularly. You can also reach me at Facebook by going to facebook.com/programmingmadeeasy. And a real quick easy reference to get to all of my videos is if you just go to programmingmadeeasy.com, and as of the time of this video, it just redirects you to my YouTube page, so it just kind of makes it easy. Since this is my first advanced tutorial, I really kind of wanted to take a quick moment to explain what I plan on doing with this series. This is not going to be a step-by-step series where we're going to be doing any sort of major implementations or building an application or anything like that. I just kind of want to go over some random topics that I think are a bit more high-level or more advanced. And they're really designed to help you guys become better developers and understand some of the principles or things that you can do within your code to make your code look and perform better. So this video is going to be on the ForEach method, which I think is an often overlooked method that really can help simplify and make your code a bit easier to read. Now, most of you who are watching this probably already use the ForEach loop. And essentially, a ForEach method is a functional implementation of the ForEach loop. So instead of having to create a ForEach loop where you create some sort of variable and you iterate through a list of objects, you can actually just call this ForEach method and it will iterate over all of the objects in the list for you. So this ForEach method performs an action for each object within a list of T. Now, as of the time of this video, I'm only aware of the implementation of the ForEach method on the list of T. I don't believe it's implemented on any other I don't believe it's an extension method for any other objects out there. It's just for a list. So if you have an iCollection or if you have an iQueryable, you're going to need to convert that to a list of T. So you may be wondering, why do I want to use a ForEach method instead of a ForEach loop? Well, quite frankly, it just shortens the code. It makes it much smaller and simpler. But it also does something else, which I think is important for C# to developers to understand that you can do with the C# language now. And that is, it moves you towards more functional implementations in your code. Rather than having a whole bunch of variables with assignments being assigned to those variables, you actually have just a simple one-off function that does everything that you need it to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into our Visual Studio window and let's get started on our project. So for this demonstration, I'm going to just write an application that takes a list of names and writes them to the console window. Okay, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But I'm going to do a lot of terrible things as I go along in this. And I'm sure as I write this code, you're going to see some of, maybe some things that maybe you've done, or maybe some of your other people that you've worked with have done, or maybe you've taken over a project and you look and you read the code and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did it this way. So I'm going to do some of those really bad practices as I go along here so you can kind of identify maybe some ways that we can refactor this down. So the first thing that we're going to do is create our list of string, because this is going to be our list of names. List of sting. I need to put the R there. There we go. Okay. And we're going to call this names equals a new list of string. And first, right off the bat, I think this is probably one that drives me nuts all the time, is people recalling a function over and over again like this. So we'll do add Steve to the list, and names add Joe to the list. Names add Mary, and we'll do names add Julie. And so we've created our names list, and now to display this, we'll do a for each loop, and for each name in our names list, we're going to do a console.writeLine, the name, and then after we're done iterating through the list, we'll do a console.readLine. Okay, so this is a pretty typical implementation you might find out in the real world. Maybe you've even written it yourself. There's really nothing too particularly bad about this. And if I bring the console window over, you can see Steve, Joe, Mary, and Julie. So this is doing exactly what we want it to. Now maybe you get the bright idea, well, wait a minute, what if we have another list of names? So we'll do another list of names, string, I remembered the R this time, other names, we'll set it equal to a new list of string, and this time we're going to do a slightly different implementation. I prefer this. If you're going to immediately set some values on a list, it makes sense to just do it here. So Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay. So then we might do this. We might just copy this, paste it down there, and for each name in other names, there we go. Okay, so maybe you've done that, and if you identify that I did a copy and paste there, and you're going, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. You're right. There's definitely something bad about copying and pasting. It should be an indication that there's some refactoring to do. And it's what we call a code smell. It smells like something is wrong. So, but if we run this, we'll see that it works just fine. So we get Steve, Joe, Mary, Julie, and Tom, Dick, and Harry. So it does exactly what we want it to. But there's some things that we need to do. Maybe it's the single responsibility principle we don't like. I'm just going to throw that out there for right now. Maybe we want the console.writeLine to be in its own thing, right? Maybe make its own function. So we'll do that. We'll do static void display name, and we'll say console.writeLine, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, again, some really terrible coding. I'm going to take whatever the current name is and write that to the window. And that current name, I'm going to make it a property on the class. So we'll do a static string current name get set. Okay, and then in our for each loop, we're going to do current name is equal to name, and then call the display name. Okay, and that's probably that's a terrible implementation. It really doesn't solve the problem at all. Sure, we've moved the responsibility of the writing to the console window to its own function, so we're sort of adhering to the single responsibility principle, you know, where a function has one responsibility. Okay, maybe that's better. I mean, it runs, right? This should work. Just move my console window over here. Steve, Joe, Mary, Julie, Tom, Dick, and Harry. But that just doesn't feel right. And really, we've repeated ourselves, right? We're doing some repeating. Maybe we could refactor this a little bit more like this. We could take and put display name instead of using this property on the class. Let's pass it in as a parameter here. So we'll do string, and I'm just going to once again call this current name just to make things simple. And I'll drop the current name as a property on the class, and now I can just do this. Alright, so has that really improved things all that much? I mean, the console.writeLine, I mean, all we've really done is replace this display name with you know, for what was there as a console write line. So we haven't really fixed anything. But what we could probably do is we could take this for each loop and put it inside of our function. So we'll do that. We'll take that and put it in here. And now instead of taking a single name, we'll do it takes a list of string, So a list of names. And we'll change this from current name to just call it names. And now we can do the console.writeLine and move that inside of our ForEach loop. And for each name, then it'll write to the console window, and we got rid of our ForEach loop. So now we can just do this. We can do display name and pass in our list of names. And same thing here, display name. And really, this should probably be renamed, right? Because display name is singular. When we were passing in just a single name, that made sense. But really, this should probably be display names. So let's change this. I'm just going to say rename this to display names. And that should fix that. Okay. So display names function is now going to take a list of names, and it's going to write those to the console window. And if I run this, okay, so Steve, Joe, Mary, Julie, Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay, the refactoring seems good. Okay, we think that we've solved the problem, but really there's still a lot of stuff going on here. And maybe some of you would move the console.readLine to after the ForEach loop because, you know, maybe you see that as duplicate code. But quite frankly, I don't like that. And that's because it's this function, this display names function, is now doing more than one thing. It's doing more than just displaying the names. It's also waiting for the user. So maybe we could fix this again by renaming display names and wait. But I'm using and in here. And that means we're really violating the single responsibility principle, right? We really should not be doing more than one thing inside of a function. So I'm going to take this back out. And really, we're kind of dilly-dallying over some really kind of unimportant stuff here. Console, because if we have the console.readLine outside of the function, is that really all that terrible to do? I mean, it's one single function call. Oops. Copy. So it's one single function call, this read line, and it kind of does a pretty good description of what it is we want it to do. Display all the names, then read the next line. Display all the names, then read the next line. So it kind of makes sense to not move that console read line. Even though we're duplicating one extra line of code for each time, it kind of makes sense because it's a separate function that we want it to do. So now our display names function, all it really does is do a for each loop on the list of names. And this may seem like it's a really good refactoring and everything, but there's actually something we could do maybe to make this a little bit better. And that's because why do we need to have a function that implements the for each loop when there already is a function that implements a for each loop? There's already in existence a method on a list object or a list type that does a for each loop, and that is the for each. So we'll do names for each. Now the for each method, you can see, takes an action. Now this may throw some of you guys off, but really this is just a lambda expression that we need to pass into it. And it doesn't even really have to be a lambda expression, it just makes things easier. But you could really pass in any function that you want to. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to pass in a lambda expression, and a lambda essentially means, okay, for each, give me, for each object in here, I'm going to assign each one of them to a variable. And that variable name is just going to be, for right now, I'm going to call it name. So for each name, assign it to the variable name. And then once I've done that, now I want to perform some sort of action. So this is the goes to indicator. It's sometimes called the lambda expression or the lambda syntax or the goes to. Really, I know there's an official term for it, but I've forgotten it off the top of my head. But essentially we're saying, so for each name, perform this function after this equal and greater than sign. And the function that we want to perform for each one of the names is the console.writeLine. And what do we want to write to the line? Well, we just want to write the name, right? Because this variable, this name, for each item in the list, it's going to assign it to the name. And then, so we could just write to the console window that name. So that's all we really need to do. And I could do the same thing here for other. So I'm going to do, instead of display names, I can just delete this now because I don't need the display names function. Same thing here. Do other names. For each. We'll say for each we want to do, I'm just going to shorten the variable name to n. This is a very common practice with Lambda expressions. Do console.writeLine n. Okay, and now we could just get rid of the display names because that function already exists. That for each function already exists in a slightly different manner. We just have to pass in this Lambda expression to tell it what is the function that we want to perform for each one of the items. And then for each one of the items in there, we want to assign it some sort of variable name. And then we can use that variable name inside of the code that we want to execute. So if we just save this and we'll run it, we'll see if I move the console window back over here. So we see Steve, Joe, Mary, Julie, and Tom, Dick, and Harry. So we've really considerably shortened up the code. And I think that we've done a pretty tremendous amount of making the code more readable. Back when we had our display names, right, when we had this this static void display names that took a list of string and names, well, it kind of obscured what it was we were doing, right? This for each loop that we were doing, we were just basically calling this function, and from the caller, we didn't really know what was happening. Sure, display name is kind of descriptive, but we're really relying upon the naming of the function in order to understand what it's doing. And that can sometimes be dangerous, especially if somebody did take and put that console read line down there inside of the display name function. We're really relying upon any previous developer to have properly named things and to make them very understandable. And that's a pretty dangerous thing to do because we know that there's just not a whole heck of a lot of that. We have a lot of miscommunication or misunderstanding between developers. Whereas here we have a pretty straightforward reading and understanding of what's going on. Build my list of names. Then on my list of names, for each one of them, I want you to write to the console window. Then read from the console window. The same thing down here. Read from, or create my list of other names. For each one of the names in my other names list, write to the console window, and then read from the console window. There's no confusion here. This for each method is very, very straightforward. Everybody kind of understands what for each is supposed to do. So we've simplified the way that the code works, and we've simplified the way that the code reads. Now, I'm going to take this one step further. And you may think, boy, how can you do anything more than that? Well, there's actually something else we can do. And for those of you who are more into the functional style of programming, you probably already recognize that there's kind of a taboo that I've already kind of broken here with this. And that is we're using the assignment operator. We're creating a names variable and assigning it this list of names. And then the same thing with other names. But if we really analyze this, are either of these variables necessary? Because if all I'm doing is creating a new list of names and then I'm calling the for each method on that list of names, do I really even need to have this names variable or this other names variable? And the answer is no, because what I can do is if I just take this assignment operator off, and I'm just going to fix this up to be to a better syntax, I think. we'll do Steve. We're just instantiating our values right off the cuff here. Mary and Julie. This is just similar to what we've done down here with the other names collection or the other names list. And now I don't need to call the names variable because it's gone. But what I can do is right from this new list, I could just call the ForEach function or the ForEach method. So I have a new list, and this is now what they call an immutable list. It's just created, right? It's just an object that currently exists inside of the main function. And as soon as the main function is done, this list will disappear. So there's no variable that's being assigned to. Instead, we're just creating an immutable object of these items. We're iterating a for each loop for each one of those items in that list, and then we're doing a console.readline. And we could do the same thing here. Get rid of the assignment operator to the other names list, and we'll just move the ForEach method. We'll just call the ForEach method on that new list, and there we go. So we're just creating a new list of names. We're calling the ForEach method directly on that list of names, and then the same thing down here. And this will all work exactly the same. So if we do start, if I just move the console window over here, Tom, Dick, and Harry, we can see that it works just fine. And you know, we could obviously make this look even shorter. So I'm just kind of getting rid of some of the extra spacing, and really we don't even need the function call anymore. And look at how small our code is now. Look at how incredibly tiny this has gotten. But it's still very, very readable. Create a new list. For each item on that list, do the console write line, then read from the line. For the next list, create the new list, Tom, Dick, and Harry, and for each item in that list, do the console write line, and then do the console read line. So there you guys go. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to give me that big old thumbs up and that like to let me know that you did enjoy it. Feel free to comment in the comment section below if you didn't. You know, let me know what I did wrong, maybe something you'd want to see done differently, or if you're confused about something, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. But I hope you guys really kind of enjoyed this video. I think you guys can see where I'm going with this series. It's just going to be kind of some random topics to kind of help you guys improve your coding. Not in any particular order, but really just kind of show you guys some different things. So there you guys go. If you guys enjoyed this, please, like I said, give me that thumbs up. Don't forget to favorite and subscribe to my channel so you guys can get notified whenever there are any new video uploads. And hopefully you guys, I get to see you guys at the next video. So thanks for watching.